Hillary Clinton might be doing better in the polls against Donald Trump as of late, but that doesn't necessarily mean that her campaign isn't cognizant of vulnerabilities that could still hand the election over to Donald Trump. So, for example, she loses 1/3 of millennial voters to third-party candidates. Another example is she's worried about a lack of enthusiasm impacting how many African Americans will come out to vote for her in Florida. And if you're surprised that they're not that excited to come out to vote for a centrist, center-right candidate, you shouldn't be. Now, another thing that they're starting to worry about is just a general lack of enthusiasm and low turnout overall, because whenever it's the case that turnout is low, guess who wins? The Republican Party. It's how they take back Congress during these midterm elections. Millennials stay home. Many voters stay home because there's no president that they're voting for, and Democrats end up losing big time. So part of the reason why turnout might be lower than usual is because a lot of the tactics that she used during the primary against Bernie Sanders are now coming back to bite her in the ass. So Observer wrote a phenomenal article explaining why this is the case. So they say, in addition to failing to hold voter registration drives to the same extent they traditionally do, the Democratic Party and Clinton campaign did everything in their power to limit the pool of voters in the primary, as they would likely have favored Sanders over Clinton. So let's just stop right there. They didn't want people to come out to vote, which is never a good thing for Democrats, but they thought that it would help Hillary Clinton, and certainly it did. So now, since you have so much ground to make up, it's hurting you because you could have registered that much more voters. So now you're having to work double time to do that because you wanted to cheat during the primary. You didn't want to give Bernie Sanders a fair shot and do what you needed to do to win the general, because you thought that whatever Republican, be it Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, would win at that time. Well, it's going to be an easy ride for you. And typically that would be the case. I would agree with you, but if you're historically disliked only to be outdone by Donald Trump, then that doesn't necessarily bode well for you in November, especially if you get dirty during the primaries. They continue. In an effort to portray all Sanders supporters as white male sexists, Clinton supporters developed the Bernie Bro narrative into a major campaign issue. The mainstream media and Clinton campaign also drove the false narrative that Sanders couldn't resonate with diverse demographics. By whitewashing the Sanders campaign, the Democratic Party and Clinton campaign silenced these demographics of voters who supported Sanders, yet are now clamoring for their support after treating them as second-class citizens. The Democratic Party did nothing but stand behind Clinton throughout the primaries, while Debbie Wasserman Schultz tipped the scales against Sanders. The only reason Wasserman Schultz eventually resigned was because the WikiLeaks release of DNC emails disintegrated any plausible deniability of neutrality she had left. Still, no Democrat spoke out when Clinton immediately hired her. It would appear the Clinton campaign has suddenly realized they actually need people to vote for their candidate in order to win, focusing entirely on soliciting donations from elites in the Republican and Democratic Party can't get Clinton to the Oval Office. That's a phenomenal point, because we saw this strategy play out during the primary and we warned Democrats it was not smart. So her whole strategy was to divide the party now, demonize Bernie Sanders, vilify his supporters, and then try to unify the party later. And she thought that because, the primary between her and Barack Obama in 2008 was pretty dirty, yet her supporters still acquiesced behind Obama and supported him once she endorsed him. She thought that, the same thing would be true for Bernie Sanders, but it's not. And when you get that dirty, as Hillary Clinton did, when you hire the person who cheated their candidate out of the position that you're in, you can't expect those feelings to just go away overnight. In fact, they're probably never going to go away, and I would be surprised if they linger until the midterm election with you, when you try to run again inevitably if you are elected. I would imagine that many Bernie Sanders supporters still won't vote for you because they're going to remember what you did to cheat them out of real change. And think about everything that went on. Debbie Wasserman Schultz rigged the primary. You're now rubbing that in our face because she's your campaign surrogate. Unbelievable. So you did all these really terrible things. You didn't do these get out the vote drives. You're doing it now because you have to, but you didn't do it during the primary, which is what Democrats always have to do. If a Democrat wants to be elected as president, he or she must make sure they get out the vote. You didn't want to do that because you didn't want to hurt your chances against Bernie Sanders, even though you had the advantages, Hillary. You had Debbie Wasserman Schultz trying to vilify Bernie Sanders and his supporters and cheat him out of the primary. You had election fraud that conspicuously benefited you. You had the name recognition. You're a Clinton, and yet you still wanted to make sure you did everything possible to cheat your way to the Democratic nomination. And now everything that you did is biting you in the ass. You made your bed, now you have to lie in it. Because don't be surprised if Bernie Sanders supporters don't want to support you after you treated them like shit. And furthermore, you could have done small things to help ameliorate these feelings. They wouldn't have gone away. Not everyone would jump over and support you, but this would have helped, and some people would have probably been more inclined to do so. One, you could have distanced yourself from Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I've said that 1,000 times. Two, you could have selected anyone other than Tim Kaine. I mean, there's so many people that you could have chosen, but you chose Tim Kaine. The only person who probably would have been worse than Tim Kaine is Debbie Wasserman Schultz for you to pick as your running mate. Why not Bernie Sanders? Why not Elizabeth Warren? I mean, it's just completely mind-boggling to me that you would go to great lengths like this to rig the primary and then be shocked when those people who you screwed over don't want to support you. It's not surprising. It's common sense. If you open your eyes, maybe you would see that the truth is right there in front of you. If you treat people like shit, they're not going to support you. Cause and effect.